Testing 1, 2, 3. Hey, this is Clark with Pass the Baton, where we believe ministry is a relay, not a marathon. Today, the scripture I wanted to talk about is Jesus, and when he's talking about turn the other cheek. Now, that's the phrase we so often hear. It's almost cliche to turn the other cheek. Sometimes people might even tell you, if you're a Christian, you should turn the other cheek. But I want to look at it and kind of see contextually, number one, what he's trying to say here, and as well as the context of where it was written from Middle Eastern and their culture, and how this was looked at a little bit different, I think, than what we have been taught so many times. Now, I do believe, without a doubt, this is teaching nonviolence, but it's not teaching to just roll over and let people do whatever they want. In fact, we are to stand against, the evil forces, and we're told that over and over. It would actually be morally wrong to not in some way stand against evil. Yet, we're to do this nonviolently. We're to do it the way Jesus did, and the way we have actually seen. There's a lot of people have modeled this, even in our own country, even with the civil rights movement and several other things that we've seen in the past, where people have portrayed this standing against, yet nonviolently. Now, there have also in recent years been a lot of events where there have been a lot of violent protest, and the Bible is strictly against that. So let's look at Matthew chapter 5 and what Jesus says here about turn the other cheek. Matthew chapter 5, known as the Beatitudes. This is the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is speaking here in these three chapters, 5, 6, and 7. Starts out with the Beatitudes, then Jesus in that well-known, I say well-known, a lot of people understand or know a lot of chapter 5 when he starts saying, you have heard, it hath been said, thou shalt not kill. But I say to you, not to hate your brother without a cause. Then on he says, about you have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say to you, not to look upon a woman with lust in your heart. Then he gets to this part. In verse 38, he said, you have heard that it has been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So in the Old Testament, in the law, it was an eye for an eye. So in other words, if someone stole your sheep, you weren't supposed to kill them. That was not retaliation. No, the retaliation would be to take one of their sheep. It was an eye for an eye. So if they hurt your eye, then you were to hurt their eye, and their tooth, or not necessarily you, but the law would take care of it. If they broke your teeth, and that was to break their teeth. I mean, honestly, this is the kind of the idea behind it. It was kind of payment for payment, and that way you wouldn't have more severe judgment than what you actually did. And so he said, you've heard this, but I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. Now, just looking at this, first off, he says, do not resist evil. So do not withstand or stand against evil. So thought about this a lot, looked in what several people have said about this. And the best explanation, I don't know Greek, I don't know Hebrew, but one of some good commentaries that I was looking at said that if you put this into Hebrew, it's as if Jesus is almost quoting from the Old Testament. For instance, in like Psalms chapter 37, where it says, fret not thyself because of evil doers. So don't be angry because of evil doers. Do not try to get even with evil doers. This is the idea here that Jesus is trying to say by do not resist. And this is kind of the same in King James as it is in ESV, where I'm somewhat reading this. It says, do not resist the one who is evil. So don't be angry with them. Don't necessarily try to get even with them. And he says, but if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. So, as I've said, cliche, we hear so often, turn the other cheek, but it's very, very specific here that Jesus says the right cheek. Now, culture, Middle Eastern culture, and it's this way now. I mean, I've heard when you study Islam, for instance, you do not stick out your left hand to shake hands with a Muslim. It would be completely and totally unacceptable because the left hand is considered unclean. The right hand would be used to eat with. Now, this goes all the way back to Jesus' time, and still in that culture, it's still looked at this way. You would eat with your right hand. You would shake. You would, with your right hand, you would do those things. And you would do other things, unclean things, things that we really don't even have to get into, but you would do other things unclean with your left hand, whether it would be, to to clean yourself and those sort of things would be with the left hand. So to do something with your left hand would be considered unclean. It would be considered unacceptable. So if you slap someone on the right cheek, you would have to be their right cheek is against you. You understand, if you're seeing them, my right hand is going to hit them on the left if I smack them. So if it's their left hand, it would be hitting the right. So it would be a backhanded slap. This is Middle Eastern culture would understand this. To hit them on the right cheek, it was a backhanded slap. So according to the Mishnah, which is it's the traditional Jewish interpretation of the law. This goes all the way back to, not right at Jesus' time, but it was shortly after the Mishnah was the interpretation of this. Now it was written in there that if a backhanded slap was 400 silver coins payment, which was the same for spitting on someone. To slap someone, in other words, you got backhanded, you got a regular slap. To regularly slap someone was only 200. So it was much more degrading to backhand slap someone. If you're slapping someone on the right cheek, it had to be a backhanded because the left hand was not clean. And this was generally and overly accepted by people that would be reading this in this time period. They understood this. And so if you backhand slap someone, you're degrading them as if you treated them as a slave. And someone who is your equal, like if you're in a fight, you're going to hit them or slap them this way. It's as your equal. To backhand, because they're not going to fight back. So it was a backhanded slap. It's how they treated slaves. Now consider yourself a slave and you get slapped. The owner and the people watching expect you to just cower down and slink away. But Jesus says, turn to them the other cheek. So once you've been backhand slapped on the right, he doesn't say, let him hit you again. He says, turn the other cheek. And the idea is that the offender would either have to take his left hand, which was unclean. And so if he hit you with the left hand, he would be considered unclean. Everyone would see it and they would understand that he was wrong for doing this. If he slapped you, he was saying that you are his equal. And so he can't degrade you. So in essence, you're standing up to him and you're saying, treat me as a human being. Treat me as your equal. Now, obviously, I don't want to get slapped. And my first, and I can't lie about it. Someone does that, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I'm probably not going to do what Jesus says instinctively. Now, as I think about it, if I was really put up to the task and said, okay, now what would you do? I know what Jesus says to do, but instinctively, I'm not sure how I would handle it. I'm not sure how it would all go down, but I do believe Jesus is teaching nonviolence here, but yet to stand up and let them know, you are a human being. We are all, no matter black, white, red, yellow, no matter whether you're male, female, no matter what culture, no matter how much money, slave, free, all created in the image of God, and we're equal. And Jesus says, stand up for yourself, let them know that. And you see in the context as he continues, and if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak also as well. So he's saying, don't just give it to him, give him more. And then the context continues, and a lot of people have probably heard this interpretation as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Now the idea is the same here, because a Roman soldier was allowed to take someone, a subject, and make them carry their stuff for a mile, which in a Roman mile, my understanding is it was shorter than an American mile. It was probably half a mile, our standards. Either way, they were allowed to make them or force them to do it 1 mile, but it was illegal for the soldier to command or to force them to carry it more than a mile. So in saying, if you're the one who's told to do this and you say, I'm just going to carry it 2 miles, you're in essence making this soldier look bad by doing more than you were supposed to do. And this is what Jesus is saying. In essence, he's saying, yes, stand up for yourself. Yes, show them that you're different. And that is so much of what Jesus does over and over and over again. This would be completely and totally different than what anyone else was teaching, even than what the Old Testament taught. The Old Testament was teaching an eye for an eye and tooth for tooth. We see it here in this passage. But he says, I say to you, turn the other cheek. So in other words, show them that you are standing up and that you will not just allow them to just degrade you and just slink off and say, okay, do what you want. That is not what is happening here. Yes, it is a nonviolent kind of approach, but in theory, Jesus is saying, stand up and show them. And in doing this, you were teaching, just like Jesus said so many times, love your enemies. If your enemy hunger, give him food. It's kind of the same thought here. And you're just showing them, listen, you cannot degrade me any more than I will allow you to. And this is what they were doing. This is hard to do, but I believe this is what Jesus is teaching here. Maybe a little bit of a non-traditional way to look at it, at least from what I thought or what maybe I've heard in the past. But I believe, after studying culturally and contextually, I believe this is exactly what Jesus is saying here. That we are, in theory, yes, stand up, but stand up non-violently. We are not to let evildoers just do whatever they want without having any kind of a say in how we react to it. And I believe this is what Jesus is saying. So hopefully this will encourage you to get in, read Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. Study this little part right here, if nothing else, verse 38 through 42. Put some notes in the comment. If you disagree, let me know. But until next time.